Joe Biden's big night as he's about to accept his party's presidential nomination. Welcome back on night 4 of the Democratic Convention.
Let's get some perspective from our KTLA 5 panel of political analysts, political consultant and analyst Matt Klink, civil rights attorney and policy advisor Sonia Diaz, and Dakota communications consultant Kerman Maddox. And of course, this is the biggest speech of Joe Biden's career tonight, the finale to the DNC, night 4. And he really needs to connect to all of those viewers that are on the fence and show that he's up for the job. What do you say, Matt, that he has to do tonight to show that he's ready to be president?
This whole convention, Cher, has been about the Democrats trying to set the stage of status quo versus change. If you listen the last 3 nights, the status quo has failed. Donald Trump has failed. He's not up to the job. We need a new person. We need someone with experience, with empathy. And Joe Biden just has to demonstrate that he is the one to manifest that change that voters want in November of 2020. The bar is relatively low for him, given President Trump's unpopularity. That being said, Joe Biden, he doesn't need to do a great speech. He just needs to give an error-free speech.
Aides say to expect a speech more sober than jubilant, one with more restraint than swagger. And Kerman, this is a candidate perhaps more than any other because of his personal story, who is fluent in grief and fortitude, setback and recovery, resilience and hope, frankly, but also a candidate whose words don't always land with care.
So I think the first thing he has to do is do no harm. And I think the campaign has done a really good job of lowering expectations. He's not known to be a great speaker. I agree with Matt. He doesn't have to knock it out of the park. He doesn't have to give the speech of his life. But I do think he needs to fill in the blanks. He needs to talk about his experience, his life experience. He needs to talk about his vision for the country. He talks quite a bit about uniting the country. If I were him, I'd focus on his partnership as VP with former President Barack Obama, how they saved the economy, and all the number of wonderful things they did, healthcare and things like that. So if I was Joe Biden, I'd do that. But for me, what's important is not so much what he says, but how he says it. Is he going to be able to connect with people? Because he's talking into a camera as opposed to talking to a large crowd of people. And I think typically you feed off that energy. So we'll see if he's up to the task. I think he is. A lot of nervous Democrats out there.
Sonia, of course, we all have been hearing about this big tent that the Democrats have pitched, that, everybody is welcome, from the progressives all the way to Republicans who want to vote for Biden. What do you expect to hear from Joe Biden's speech tonight?
I expect to hear how the party is going to be a big tent, frankly. We saw that a bit tonight already with some of the videos in the montage, including the first trans delegate in the Virginia House of Commons, which is a remarkable feat. But what VP Biden has to do tonight is to talk about what America will look like in January 2021. And he needs to sell that future to the American public, particularly to voters who maybe want to sit this one out or are not enthusiastic about the ticket. He needs to sell us a future that doesn't have Americans dying unnecessarily, doesn't have Americans losing shelter and foreclosure on the horizon, but one of opportunity and prosperity. And I think that if he tells that story, it will be a really positive event for his campaign.
A speech we anticipate around 7:45, and one we will carry here live. And stay with us, panel. Thanks as always, and we'll see you shortly. Let's bring in our KTLA 5 panel of political analysts, political consultant and analyst Matt Klink, civil rights attorney and policy advisor Sonia Diaz, and Dakota communications consultant Kerman Maddox. Sonia, first to you. Joe Biden coming off a long and exhausting process of finding a running mate, and in the process having a whole lot of conversation with a whole lot of candidates that represent a diverse background politically, ideologically, personally. You have to believe those conversations to some degree helped him inform his thinking as he prepares to address the nation tonight.
That's a really good way of framing it. President Biden was true to his word that he would anoint a running mate that identified as a woman, and he has done that. He's chosen a Black woman. Again, Black women are the linchpin of the Democratic Party. They, more than any other demographic group, vote for Democrats every single election. And they were key to Obama's victories. They also came out in support of Secretary Clinton more than any group. With that, there are other women, in addition to Black leaders here in California, like Representative Bass. We have gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams in Georgia, along with the mayor of Atlanta who just spoke, and people in the Midwest who are really important for that persuasion game that we think the Democratic Party is pursuing. No matter what, all of these women have informed VP Biden's thoughts about how best to reach out to this important electorate. Remember, 54% of white women supported Trump in 2016. But also, what are the needs of these voters? What is the policy platform? And that's something I hope to hear more about when VP Biden takes the stage tonight.
Matt Klink, to Sonia's point, we're going to hear plenty of red meat, but will we also hear a bone or two thrown to the progressive wing of the party that's been so prominent in recent years and clearly more prominent with every passing day?
You know, Micah, I don't think you are. I think you're going to hear Joe Biden basically say, I'm not Donald Trump. I'm the one you should vote for. He doesn't want to talk about specific policy solutions, in part because the further he moves to the left, the further he moves away from the middle of the country. And he wants to be rather vague and nebulous about some of the policies on purpose. His whole campaign is going to be about vote for me. I'm not Trump. I'm calm. I'm going to be stable. I'm proven. I have empathy. I'm going to listen. He does not want to get into big debates over Medicare for all or the Green New Deal or what he wants to do with Afghanistan and Iraq. That's not to his advantage. It's all campaign of personality is what he's going to focus on. And right now, it appears that's a great a strategy on the Democrats' part.
Kermit, as you know, the last opportunity for this candidate to speak unfiltered, unedited, and unopposed to the American people. What an opportunity.
It's a big opportunity. It's something he's waited for a long, long time. Remember, this is his third try for the presidency, and he's the walking example of someone who never gives up. So in a lot of ways, I think a lot of people can relate to that. As I said earlier, it's important what he says, but it's more important how he says it. He really has to connect tonight. And I agree with Matt. There's not going to be a lot of red meat because he doesn't have to do that. What you did with former President Obama, how are you going to unify the country? This whole convention is about a contrast between turning the page of this administration, which is so divisive, and a guy who can get everybody together, everybody to buy in, and an America that is welcoming for everybody. And I think that's what you're going to hear tonight from Joe Biden.
We're working on Kerman's signal strength as we speak. Good of you to be with us, all three of you. We'll check in again next half hour.
And so let's take a deeper dive into what we've already seen and what's still to come tonight during the convention.
We are joined once again by our KTLA 5 panel of political analysts, consultant Matt Klink, civil rights attorney and founding director of the UCLA Latino Policy and Politics Initiative, Sonia Diaz, and Dakota Communications consultant Kerman Maddox. Matt, a long list of party luminaries, the party's biggest stars. They've teed this up for Joe Biden. If there was ever a moment for the man to stand on its own, tonight is it.
I think that Joe Biden has been preparing for this moment, Micah, for his entire political career. As we said earlier, he's not known for giving fantastic, earth-shattering speeches. He's just going to be, lunch pail Joe. He's going to lay out his vision for the country. He's going to be an empathetic soul who can help the country in its time of great need. And he's not going to do it with flashy rhetoric. He's going to do it with good old-fashioned elbow grease and hard work. And I think that that's what the Democrats are banking on, that the country wants in 2020. They don't want collision and conflict and hostile rhetoric. They want someone who's going to get things done and work to bring the country out of the COVID pandemic.
Let's go to you, Kerman. What do you think that Joe Biden has to do tonight in order for his speech not just to resonate tonight and through the weekend, but through the RNC next week?
Yeah, I think what he's got to do is, again, talk about his vision, his leadership. He's got to tell the Joe Biden life story. He, again, has to talk about his partnership with former President Barack Obama. But I think what he's got to do is he's got to let people know we have had 4 really tough years from the Trump administration. And I think, as Matt said, it's not about lofty rhetoric that's going to resonate with people. I think people are looking for a good manager, studied leadership, someone they can trust, someone's honest, and someone who can unite this country. This country is terribly divided. It's been very divided to this president. And I think Joe Biden knows when you look at the poll numbers, management of COVID-19 is a disaster for Donald Trump. And the issue of divisiveness polls really well. And I think Joe believes in that. So Joe Biden, not only for tonight, but going forward, has to talk about his leadership, how he can manage crises like COVID-19, and how he can really bring this nation together. I think that'll resonate with Democrats, independents, and disaffected Republicans.
Sonia, this candidate is as qualified as they come to communicate empathy and a sense of hope. Certainly what this country needs in this moment, all that's happened in this strangest of years. What do you expect?
I expect VP Biden to talk about the systems that need changing and how he's going to change them. Under Trump's leadership, the first thing that the Republican Party tried to do was gut the ACA. And today, so many Americans have access to deal with the coronavirus pandemic because of the Affordable Care Act, for which VP Biden had a central role in whipping votes in the U.S. Congress. I think healthcare is top of mind, and he should lean into that. I think the second thing is jobs. One of the things his campaign has made clear is that they want to invest $2 trillion in infrastructure. This is something that President Trump has said over and over again on the campaign trail, that he's going to bring jobs back to America. He's going to keep them here. And over the course of the last 4 years, we've seen more job losses than in American history. So if Joe Biden can talk about 2 things, I think it's health and jobs.
You know, we've already heard from some of his competitors throughout the last, 4 days during the primaries. And tonight we heard from Senator Cory Booker just moments ago, actually. Let's take a listen to what he said just a few minutes ago. Okay, we're still trying to get that turned around for you, so we'll skip that. But I don't know if you were able to see that. We do have it. All right, let's listen in and then we'll comment.
I believe in the dream of our ancestors. Together with Joe and Kamala in the White House, we'll raise the minimum wage so no one who works a full-time job in America lives in poverty. Together, we'll fight for those who keep us healthy, who keep us safe, who teach our children. We'll stand for those.
And there you have it, just kind of jumping off from what you were saying, Sonia. It's about jobs. It's about the pandemic. And, we want to see that the president, that he has that presidential look is what we're going for, and that he is up for the job.
That's exactly right. I think that Senator Booker was one of a few candidates in the large Democratic Party who had a speaking role. We also heard from Andrew Yang. And it's important to note what is driving American voters and what's driven them to VP Biden as the Democratic nominee. And that is jobs and healthcare. Now, there are some things that nobody foresaw. And that was the coronavirus pandemic and rising, worsening inequality based on racial disparities. So I think if Biden can just talk about being a strong, even-keeled hand based on his experience in the United States Senate and him being the top lieutenant to President Obama, voters will feel like they have somebody who can make decisions and resume American prominence on an international stage.
One of the many rising stars in the Democratic Party, Atlanta's Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. We understand she spoke a few moments ago. Let's listen to what she had to say.
They too changed America, and so can we.
Keisha Lance Bottoms reaching back to the enormous legacy of a civil rights pioneer, the late John Lewis. Matt Klink, not a surprise to hear that, and that we might hear more of it tonight.
I think you're going to hear a lot of that. You've heard them, the Democrats, talk about Congressman John Lewis and his proud legacy. And I think that they're going to use that to hopefully inspire young voters of color to turn out and vote, which they desperately need. I mean, let's be clear, Barack Obama in 2016 said that he would take personal offense if young African-American voters didn't turn out and vote for Hillary. Well, they didn't, and she lost. So now they are going above and beyond to make sure to say your vote counts, even to the point of telling people to text a number from their phone to make sure that voting is easy for people who might not be inclined to vote or may have an excuse as to why they don't want to do it.
Okay, to our panel, we want to say thank you so much for your insight and analysis this evening. And we do want to turn now to the DNC on night 4, the finale of the Democratic National Convention. Let's listen in.
We want to thank our panel, Sonia Diaz, Matt Klink, Kerman Maddox. And thank you all for being a part of our coverage. We'll see you back here tonight for the news at 10 and 11.